You see those hips? This guy threw around some dick in the late 80s, early 90s.
Dude, he's thick as hell. Like,
Look
dude
at that.
is straight up bodybuilder.
How many effing belts does he have around his waist?
Well, that's
Can you
I guess
even?
so.
Can you guys even do that move?
I can.
Let me see it.
I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could throw my hips.
Hold on. We're finna go. Hold up.
That's pretty good.
Around the clock, we're gonna rock to the rhythm of the street, up and down the block. Around the clock, we're gonna rock the dreams you give, the space to talk. Wanna be somebody, be a contender. Gotta reach for the sky. If you want it, fight for it, or kiss it goodbye. It's make it or break it. Try to survive. Don't ever say never. Keep your dream alive.
Does anybody know the words?
I think
I
know
still
some.
believe.
When does it start? Now?
I've been in a cave for 40 days. Only a spark to light my way. I want to give out. I want to give in.
This is all crime.
This is
This is
our
all sin.
but I still
believe
through the
through the
storm, through the cries,
cries, and through the walls.
and I
Oh, and I still believe.
Oh. Hit it, Blake. I still believe.
Oh, yes.
Oh, we're back. 31 days. Blake.
Jesus Christ.
He's Blake.
Dude, he did that for like 30 minutes. I just did it for 10 seconds. I can't
Podcast
breathe.
is over.
Look at that.
The dude is a stud. He is an absolute stud. The hip motions, the abs.
Dude, his core was meant for this. Look at that.
I'm trying to pay attention. Is that a dude right there beside him, or
No, that's a chick.
Bass player.
what's going on there?
Can he play and do that at the same time, or was that just for the movie?
No, he can.
No, well, there's no way he can actually. There's no way he can actually make the. I thought I almost called it a trumpet, whatever it's called, the saxophone sound like that while he's doing the Rick Rude up on stage.
You have to exhale, and he's just like thrusting those hips out as hard as he can. So
I take it you two didn't go search out his other shows that he's put out like I did. He definitely puts on a show every single time.
Does he still tour?
I don't think he still tours, and he doesn't do podcasts either. Ronnie found out yesterday.
He doesn't do our podcast. Before Tim gives us the history on Tim Capello, he joins the ranks of every other person of interest that we've asked to come on the show to say, nah, can't do it. I can't do it. He didn't give him, he just said he didn't have the time.
Did we?
I think he will.
Low pan.
Look, I know you wanted me to search out Lopan. I did. I tried to.
I'm not doing a podcast. I still think Tim Capello is going to come on the show. I guess you could say, I still believe.
Well, he definitely won't be here. I wish that now I would have him like in the green room and I'd pop him in right there in the middle and he'd be like, hey, guys. But no, he literally said no, which I guess, Tim, you had a good point. At least he said,
yeah.
At least he responded.
You have correspondence with Tim Capello. So
That's right.
That's awesome. What other podcast can even say that? None.
What's in that cup?
Tea. Unsweet tea.
Nice.
Unsweet
Nice.
tea.
Nice.
Gross.
I know.
I'm proud of you, though.
Well, look, I'm just trying to look good.
I made the switch years ago.
Trying to be
Mission succeeded.
trying to look good. Mission accomplished, like George Bush said. Now let's roll.
Watch this drive.
All right, guys. For those of you that are still left, we're going to talk 1987's The Lost Boys today. And Tim, get us up to date with this stud saxophone player. Who is he? Why is he important? Why? I mean, would you guys say that this guy's cameo in this movie is one of the top 3 moments of the movie?
He's more famous than most of the people in this movie. Like, as far as enduring fame, right?
Okay, I was going to call bull crap on that.
No. As far as people who still, like, think about this dude in this movie, like, there's only maybe 2 guys in this movie people still talk about.
Corey Haim. He didn't come on the show either.
Oh, he's busy. He's making music. He's doing stuff.
No, it's Corey Feldman is making the music. Corey Haim.
Corey Haim, yeah, he's not going to make it.
Okay, so let's go through this. You've just thrown out a blanket statement. Kiefer Sutherland, yeah, whatever his name is. He's still super famous.
Yeah. I wouldn't say super famous. I mean, no one gives a crap who I am, but I mean, what's Kiefer done for me lately?
Designated survivor.
Okay, nice.
There you go. Corey Feldman, who is working at Red Lobster. Corey Haim's dead. The sister from Parenthood, I'm not even sure she's alive. Max.
Richie Rich's dad.
Yeah, I don't know.
I saw that dude before. I saw Max and I was like, God, where have I seen this guy? Surely it was something else. I don't think I watched Richie.
Guys,
Rich.
Max's most famous role is the husband in Overlord.
Okay, right.
He's the one dancing on the cruise on the yacht after she's fallen off, and they just leave her there in the insane asylum wherever she was.
And then you got Jason Patrick, who took Keanu Reeves' place in Speed.
Why is he famous other than the fact he looked like Jim Morrison in this movie?
That's a pretty good reason to be famous.
I mean, Jason Patrick can act. He's really good looking. Can act. He was horrible in Speed 2. He was the most horrible thing in Speed 2, which is a very horrible movie, which was tough to do. I mean, he's in that movie Sleepers with a bunch of people that can act. He doesn't stand out there. He had his 5 minutes to try to capitalize on a movie career after Speed 2, and he didn't make it happen. So, I mean...
wait, when did Speed 2 come out?
Like 92?
Well, how many years were between
93?
Lost Boys and Speed 2?
Like 6
7 or 8.
Well, I think he'd already missed the boat by that point. You either capitalize on Lost Boys or you're dead.
No,
I mean, the worst Lost Boys scored a role on Bill and Ted before this guy got his role in Speed 2.
Good point.
I don't think Jason Patrick capitalized off the Lost Boys because I don't think Lost Boys was a big deal until later on, like a lot of these 80s movies.
I need to give me some stats and prove it, Ronnie.
That's where I'm going right now, baby. Don't worry. The power of editing will make me look like a gene.
Tim Capello, I think it was Tina Turner's saxophonist, just to throw that out there.
Yeah, you're right.
Yes.
And fun fact about Jason Patrick, he beat out Ben Stiller for the role of Michael.
Really?
Michael? Yeah, Michael.
This movie really sucks if Ben Stiller is playing the role of Jason Patrick. At least Jason Patrick is over 6 feet tall. Ben Stiller would have been shorter than Corey Haim.
God, this movie would have aged terribly had it been Ben Stiller. No one would be talking about it.
Okay, let's talk about Patrick Swayze for a second. Patrick Swayze in Next to Kin, the movie's horrible, okay? But Ben Stiller is so out of place in that movie as the son of the mobster that it makes the movie even more ridiculous. Young Ben Stiller is ridiculous. All right, so Jason Patrick jumped into the fray with a TV movie called Tough Love. Then he moved on to Solar Babies in 1986.
Great movie.
The Lost Boys in 1987. And I knew I was right. Right after Lost Boys, Beast of War, Teach 109, Denial, After Dark, My Sweet, Frankenstein Unbound. He did nothing, guys. He got no traction whatsoever off of Lost Boys, and I was wrong on the Speed 2. He didn't do Speed 2 to 1997. So we're
God.
talking a 10-year break where he did nothing. Now I was wrong on Sleepers too, because Sleepers actually came before Speed 2, and that was a critically acclaimed movie, and I'm pretty sure they said he did well in that as far as his acting, and that probably got him the Speed 2 role. But I mean, and then after Speed 2, we're looking at absolutely, I mean, the Alamo in 2004.
Ronnie, couldn't you argue though that other than the two Coreys and Kiefer Sutherland, that they were all pretty quiet after this movie? I mean, I think Kiefer Sutherland went on to do Young Guns, maybe right after this, or was it right before this?
Probably
Young Guns was 89.
Young
Bill
Guns
and
was,
Ted, dude.
Young Guns was 88. Young Guns was 88. Bill and Ted was 88 as well, I believe, or 89. So, but that's his only two movies. I mean,
That's what I'm saying. And like Kiefer Sutherland was pretty quiet until what, Cowboy Way in '93 or something like that.
No, I think it was Flatliners. I mean, believe it or not, Kiefer Sutherland was in a ton of movies with that whole 80s crew. He was in a bunch of movies with Lou Diamond Phillips after Young Guns. He come back for the Young Guns sequel. He was in Flatliners. He did a bunch of movies just in smaller roles. He had a starring role in Cowboy Way. We remember that because we watched that a million times growing up. But Kiefer worked pretty steadily throughout the 90s and the 2000s. So
then 24 hit, and boom,
dude,
all the money he could ever need.
And he could still
phone booth.
The great, and yeah, it became the whole Kiefer Sutherland voice thing where he would do voiceovers on commercials, and there's no telling how much money Kiefer Sutherland actually has because of 24.
Who's a better vampire, Stephen Dorff or Kiefer Sutherland?
Stephen
That's a good
Dorff.
question.
Stephen
That's
Dorff.
a really good question.
Is that hands down Stephen Dorff?
It's tough.
Kiefer Sutherland, every time they show him in like their lair and they put that light on him, like just to add effect, it looks pretty sweet, even though he's not in vampire mode. Like the dude's legit.
Guys, that's a crew right there.
That is a crew. And I'm going to say this, like, I know this movie takes place in the 80s. I don't think this look dates itself or has aged a bit. I still think this is awesome.
Absolutely.
And like, Tim, that's a great question. And Ronnie, I mean, that's a new video, buddy. Top 5 vampires in movies, vampire characters in movies, or best vampires ranked, or something like that. I mean,
vampires. Like, it has to be the stylish category. Like vampires that are supposed to like be cool as hell.
Okay. So that's what we're ranking off of. Vampires that look cool, are cool. And that's the reason I'm going to think about it for a second, but I immediately jumped to Stephen Dorff because we talked about Stephen Dorff, Tim, with The Gate, and I think that was peak Stephen Dorff. Looks, attitude, acting role. That was a great vampire character. Now, I mean, just thinking about it, I mean, look at these guys. They look like freaking Motley Crue, and I guess that was
I like the photoshopped guy on the right. That was nice of them to put him in the picture.
Who, Bill?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal, and I think Blake is exactly right. This look is amazing. They look like an 80s band. And I think if you made a movie right now and you had vampires that look like this, it would still be cool as hell. You got 80s hair, 80s wardrobe.
How old are these guys in this movie? Like, are they supposed to be kids, like teenagers in the 80s?
So this is going to be the topic that we discuss, and that's what you just said, Tim. I think this group has been together for quite some time, maybe 40, 50 years. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But
So
their age, because vampires don't age, they're teenagers. They're, it's supposed to be, and Ronnie, I'm sure Ronnie will get into this more, but the original pitch for this, Tim, was to be kids, like Goonies style kids, but with a horror theme. Like, it's kids who attack that bonfire in the beginning of the movie. It's 10 and 11-year-olds that attack and kill people. And that's what's scary it's the Lost Boys. It's the Peter Pan, spinoff or whatever. But I like to think that these guys are 16 forever 16 or 17, but it happened a long time ago.
Yeah, Blake's absolutely right. The original draft of this movie was for it to be little kids. You got to figure Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, the Frog Brothers in this movie, are supposed to be 13, 14 years old. The Lost Boys, the vampires in this movie, were supposed to resemble the kids from Peter Pan. So we're talking anywhere between 10 and 13 years old. And Corey Haim and his little crew right there would be the ones killing the vampires in Santa Carla. But they ended up going with late teenagers. And I think for the best. I mean, I think they could come back later and make the Lost Boys again. They could remake it and do it with original idea and not piss a lot of people off. But I think Blake's absolutely right. These guys are supposed to be teenagers, and I think they've been around longer than 40 or 50 years. Just jumping to the extreme end of this movie, when it's revealed that Max is the big heavy, the main vampire, and he goes in there and he sees that David is dead. It is David, right? The blonde-headed one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's Kiefer Sutherland.
When he sees David is dead and that his boys are, he refers to them as his boys, and he turns his head over there. You feel for that a little bit because all his sons are dead. He took these kids for whatever reason, and you can say what you want about Max throughout this movie, but he seems like for a vampire to be an okay individual. And what I mean by that is I can see him saving these boys at some time throughout his time as a vampire. Maybe they were homeless, maybe they were being abused, maybe they were in jail, maybe whatever, turning them into vampires, making them his sons so he can take them to raise. So, there's a lot of emotion there at the very end of the movie with him losing his boys. So I think you're right, Blake. I think these guys have been together forever. If you go back to that scene where the Frog Brothers and Corey Haim and Jason Patrick sneak into the Lost Boys lair in the middle of the day, when they kill that one while he's sleeping, the rest of them are going after him before they can escape into the sunlight. And Kiefer Sutherland's like crying because one of his brothers has just gotten killed. So that puts a little humanity into characters.
Do you think Max is supposed to be sympathetic in any way in this movie?
I don't think they wrote Max to be sympathetic. I thought they wrote Max to be a geek, and
because to me he's a straight up bad guy. Like, I don't think he rescued these boys. Like, they're all pretty into the killing people thing.
Well, that could go from years of having to feed off of humans. It becomes natural instinct to, okay, these people become our food. But I do think he saved these boys to make them his sons. I really do. I don't think they wrote it for people to interpret like that, but that's the way I interpreted it after watching this movie for like the 50,000th time, is that at the end, there's some real emotion there in between Max's I'm the big bad guy acting, where, my kids, they're dead. You've killed my kids. Now I'm going to kill your kids.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Max just wants a family.
Yes.
You find that out. He just wants a family.
He finds their mother who is walking the boardwalk, and we haven't even talked about this town, guys. This movie starts off absolutely great because you've got the Doors playing, you got them riding into Santa Carla, and what is Jason Patrick's name in this movie?
Michael, because they said it 100 freaking times.
Michael turns around and sees the back of the billboard going through, and it says Santa Carla, the murder capital of the world. So, and everybody they show in the first 2 or 3 minutes of the movie, maybe 3 or 4 minutes of the movie while the credits are going, are super sketch looking people. So
you talked about the Doors song. When on the Blair Witch Project, we talked about if the movie is the same thing without the marketing. Like, is it even a big deal or even talking about it without the marketing campaign? And I think the consensus was no. Is this movie worth a damn without the soundtrack and like the tone that the soundtrack creates?
I think when you have
you got the cry little sister thing going on throughout the whole movie.
I think when you have vampires that look like this, and without a doubt, they were going for the 80s heavy metal band vibe here, that you have to have the soundtrack that they had. And this movie has a great soundtrack. And
Cry Little Sister is actually better than I Still Believe.
Well, without a doubt. The question, though, your original question of could this movie has been as good as it is without the soundtrack that it has, I think they could have done an instrumental soundtrack, and this movie would have been okay.
Whoa! But when you have the little girl chorus going, "Thou shalt not cry," like that's deep, man. You can't go without the vocals. That's huge.
It is, and you got me thinking. And no, I think you're right. I think this movie without this current soundtrack,
Little sister.
I mean that's part of the appeal of this movie. 80s soundtrack, great music. The look of the characters, and overall a movie about somebody, a woman that just lost her husband and is trying to find a place for her family, and a vampire family looking to add to it. So going back to your question, your statement that you don't think Max is a good person, he is looking for a mother for his boys. That's what he says at the end of it. I'm trying to find them a mother because they're so rambunctious right now. They're going around doing stuff I'm telling them not to do. They need a mother figure in their life.
Well, what Sexy Saxophone guy said about this being like it's not a spinoff. What a reimagining of Peter Pan is Max Peter Pan?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just saying, all I meant by that when I said spinoff was the crew at Neverland is referred to as the Lost Boys. This name of this movie is the Lost Boys. So it's like a Peter Pan theme there, that these kids are lost, or not lost, but stuck forever as vampires.
They never grow old.
I think Tim has a point. I think Tim's got a point in the fact that Blake, you're right. They did make this movie with the Lost Boys from the Peter Pan story in mind, because they never grow old. They never age.
Captain Hook?
But that'd be Michael.
Boys?
Be Michael.
Oh.
But I think Max is Peter Pan, because he's the Lost Boys are his family, and the Lost Boys are Peter Pan's family. Peter Pan brought each one of those boys to Neverland with him, and Max has brought each one of these kids on his journey to live forever, immortality. And to answer your
mom
question,
is Wendy.
Yeah, and to answer your question, the grandpa is Captain Hook, because he comes in there at the end of it and kills Peter Pan. So there is a Captain Hook figure in this movie. And that grandpa, is he just a taxidermist? Is that what he does for a living? Is he independently wealthy? That whole trash island atmosphere he's got there.
Call our buddy Swayze and get insurance, because he drives straight into the front of his house at the end of the movie.
Has he killed vampires before is the question. Has Grandpa had interactions and battles with vampires before? Because at the very end, Grandpa's out of it. He's a hippie. He's a dope smoker. At the end of it, runs through there with his car, and he shoots all the shit that was on top of his car through Max and kills Max. And he walks over to his fridge and he gets him a drink, and he goes, "One thing I didn't like about never like about Santa Carla, all the damn vampires." And they're just looking at him as it goes to credits, in a great way to end the movie. But
it says he knows if all the bodies buried in the desert. What was that line he said? I forgot the line.
Well, Corey Haim asked him, "Is Santa Carla really the murder capital of the world?" And he, without missing a beat, goes, "Well, if all the bodies buried around here stood up and started walking, we'd have one hell of a population problem."
Yeah, he's probably killed some vampires.
The one thing I like that they did with this movie, guys, with the vampire aspect, is the way they showed the Lost Boys attack. It's always an aerial view where these guys are flying. At the very beginning of it, when the fat security guard that looks like me embarrasses them on the boardwalk, they come from the sky to get him. They come from the sky on multiple occasions, and I just think that is a really cool camera shot, a really cool way to show these guys attacking without showing them attacking.
What was your favorite Lost Boys scene where they're all together and they do something?
Well, everybody's going to say the same thing. First off, their lair is cool as hell, because it's a old hotel that is caved in. The best Lost Boys scene is going to be when they're all hanging on the bridge, in my opinion, because I don't know. It's just something about that scene that.
And they fall into the fog.
Yes, and they fall right into the fog.
That's mine. That was what I was going to say.
I think it's either going to be two answers out of this group right here. I think it's the hanging from the bridge scene, or when they're all sitting around and he's talking about eating maggots and worms. Blake,
this is why Kiefer Sutherland beat Stephen Dorff, is because whenever he's talking to Michael, he's menacing, but more cool than menacing. He's got he's being a but it's just subtle enough to where, Michael sticks around and it doesn't turn into a thing.
What do you guys think the process is with this crew to decide who they kill or who they turn? Because they immediately decide to turn Michael into one of them. They turn Star into one of them. They're going to turn Star's kid into one of them.
Hot people.
We see him kill everybody else on the beach, the security guard. What do you think? You think it's just strictly looks?
You got to be sexy if you want to join this vampire club.
So there were.
Well, I mean, listen. If Jason Patrick, if you ask Jason Patrick, say, "Hey, you could look like this forever." If you ask him now, he'd be like, "Yeah, let's do it."
What does he look like now?
Me?
Do we know?
So none of those guys around the bonfire that they attack and destroy and rip apart, none of those guys were good looking, or
you don't want it to turn into a total sausage fest. Like, they'll go for Michael, but they've only got one chick. And
that's a good point. I'm not going to agree with about the sausage fest part, but you don't want too many chiefs in your tribe, right? Like, if you have too many alphas, things can get out of hand, maybe.
Well, that goes right into my question of, I was going to say, do you think they wanted to initiate Michael because without missing a beat, he just decks David in front of all of them and says, "Me and you, keep your crew out of this. It's me and you, go." So that would go against what you're saying. We don't want another alpha. But maybe they don't look at it like that, Blake. Maybe they just look at it like we're going to add a brother, somebody that acts just like us, so we know we can trust them.
Before the thousands of our listeners think that we're complete dumbasses, Max does say he sicked his boys on Michael so he could get to the mom. So, I mean, that's why they chose Michael.
Had nothing to do with him going after Star.
Star was the bait, right?
Yeah.
Like, Star was the bait because she's already like half vampire. And does she know about Max, or does she just do what Sutherland tells her to? She doesn't know him because she's like, "You're the secret he was protecting." All right, yes. It's all coming together now. It's almost like I watched the movie.
All right, Blake, favorite scene in the movie?
Probably when Michael. I hate the parts where Michael is super weak. I can't stand that. But when he finally hulks up at the end and says, "Me and you," to David. I like the final fight scene. I do like the twist, because let's be honest, guys. None of us the first time we saw this movie we thought David was the leader. I mean, when they're in that cave and they're going to stab one of the other guys, we're like, no, don't get him, get David, and this is all over. I do love the swerve that Max, because you do think it's him at one point, and then they do the garlic and the other stuff, all those tests on him, and it don't work. I do like the swerve that Max is Dracula,
Well, here's the deal. They also introduced some really cool aspects on how to become a vampire without getting bit. Like drinking the blood out of the wine bottle is what turns Michael. And, in most of these movies, if you get bit in the neck, they can either choose to drain you or they can choose to turn you. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I like the whole see, I would have liked to have seen, I know you're going to start saying, well, they were the entire movie. I would have liked to have seen more Frog Brothers and Corey Haim. I thought they did an okay job of splitting everything down the middle with everybody, but I would have liked to see just more of interactions with those guys. And don't get me wrong, I think that Corey Feldman in this movie gets way too much praise. He's doing a freaking Sylvester Stallone gimmick with the headband and the voice.
Dude, the voice is a tough rewatch with the voice. That aged poorly.
So, I mean, you got him acting tough, and we all know he weighs 113 pounds in this movie. But the whole scheming, I like the very beginning of it when they run into him. First off, I was like, where are the Frog Brothers' parents? Okay, because they're running this comic book shop on the boardwalk. And then for the first time, I noticed this. You got these two people passed out in multiple scenes in that comic book store. Is this the Frog Brothers' parents? And
dude,
if it is,
parents.
Are they dead or are they just high?
Man, he's got if Max was truly saving boys, then he would have already been turned. So I'm shooting down your theory with that right there. He's got deadbeat parents that run a comic book store which in Santa Clara has got to be clearing all of $2 a day from their own son.
Hey, what kind of powers do these vampires have? Because what is going on during Michael's transformation when he's turning that Chinese food into maggots? Like, is he actually doing that? I mean, what's the deal there?
I think that was Sutherland. I took that as Sutherland like using his illusionary abilities to just mess with him.
So how far does that go, though? Like, what do you think he could? What? I don't understand the power.
How your maggots, Michael?
I would like to go back to John Carpenter's Vampires, and they talk about that you have a psychic link with the person that bit you for like the first 48 hours. Maybe he has some kind of link on his mind for like the first 48 hours after he drinks out of that wine, and he can force his eyes or mind to see whatever he wants to see.
Getting bit, it takes more than just getting bit unless it's with Max, because the Lost Boys can just kill whoever and they don't come back as vampires. You got to have Max's stuff.
Okay, so I think I found a plot hole. Why do we have to kill Max again? Max didn't bite Michael. Max didn't turn Michael.
The Frog Boys, Corey Haim read it in the comic, but the Frog Boys also say if you kill the leader, everything corrects itself.
Why?
Yeah, if he doesn't die, then Michael and Star remain half vampires.
How does that make sense?
I don't know.
Okay, in this realm,
it's satanic magic. I mean, that's
in this realm of vampires. So if somebody would have killed Max at the very beginning of the movie, Kiefer Sutherland and the whole motley crew are going back as humans, right?
Right.
All right.
According to this, yeah.
Okay, so I'm to assume then that the blood that was drank out of that wine bottle is Max's.
Yes.
Because then he would have that. That would be the only way that would make sense.
Yeah, I thought did they not say that? I think that's the case though. You drink Max's blood.
If they said it, I missed it. I'm sorry, Tim.
Well, I didn't know they said it because I missed it too. But these vampire deaths are pretty crappy, right? Like, in what movie does a vampire die and not like turn to dust or burst into flames?
Are you serious? We
Something
got the whole
die?
explosion scene where Corey Haim goes,
Death by stereo.
Death by stereo.
Yeah, but when Sutherland dies, it's just like some smoke and that's it. He's just a regular human corpse.
That's true. Now listen to this. Okay, you asked me what my favorite scene was just with the vampires, right?
Right. When the crew's together.
Yeah, my favorite scene in this entire movie is going to be when the kids are going to get holy water and they're going. I always like the scenes whenever they're weaponizing. They're stocking up on weapons and holy water to be able to fight the vampires that night. Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if I have one, and well, no, I do. It's Tim Capello.
I knew you were going to take that one as reason. I didn't say
that's
guys,
the only.
Is there a this freaking boardwalk? Is it a fair every night?
Every night.
And if it's like this every night, why does that town look better?
Well,
I mean,
it's
like
probably employing most
of
of the people of Santa Clara. Like, it exists just to maintain the town.
I read that the rides are still there, the arcades are still there, the comic book shop's been moved, but they still have
the Star.
Yeah, they still have the comic book that they were reading in there. The cast signed it, and you can take pictures with it for free. I read all that. That's I guess like Tim's right. That's how the town makes money.
All right, Lost Boys, 1987. Blake, what are you giving it?
This is a 8.5 out of 10. This is a really good movie, awesome movie, fun, never gets old. I do think they kind of try to throw in too much. Like, is it about Corey Haim and the Frog Brothers? Is it about the Lost Boys? I think it should have been more about the Lost Boys. And then we try to throw in Michael and Star with this love story, and then Max, is looking for a queen. I just think they kind of threw too much at us at one time, but it's still a good. And plus, Ronnie, cut to the saxophone guy. Amazing. Look at that.
We got a burning barrel on stage.
Why?
Yeah. It's cold.
He has to sweat the whole time.
He is so He's so greased up. He looks like he's about to walk through the curtain on Raw.
It looks like the stage from Never Too Young to Die. It's like Gene Simmons should be up there with this guy. I mean, a burning barrel. That's something you see like in apocalyptic movies. Why do they have a burning barrel up there while this dude's getting? It's a cool scene.
It's to make you sweat the whole time.
When I was watching it earlier, it is the coolest scene in this movie. All three
It is
easily.
Look, you got 80s, you got hair, you got the actors walking around. You're introduced to everybody in one scene while this madman is up there just getting it over and over and over and over. And he's put on a hell of a show.
This is his town.
What if he was the
Dude,
head?
he's the mayor.
This is his town.
All right, Tim, what do you give this movie? He's the mayor. My dad's the mayor.
I give this movie 6 out of 10. No soundtrack. 8 out of 10 with the soundtrack. In and of itself, it's a pretty basic, vampire movie. But I think they use the music well enough where it goes all the way to 8.
All right, I'm gonna go 7.3 on this movie. As far as vampire movies goes, it's not bad. But if you want to break it down, I'm trying to find a single freaking character in here that is believable besides the mother. There's a lot.
What is the worst character in this movie to you guys? What is the worst character that this movie doesn't need?
Okay, that's different. The worst character that the movie doesn't need.
The 2 guys headbanging to Tim Capello on a saxophone in front of the stage. You're not headbanging to that music. Get him out of the movie.
I mean, I want to say Corey Feldman is the worst character, but he's vital because he's the one that tells Corey Haim all about the vampire problem in that town. But it's just the acting that him and that not even the other guy that plays the other frog brother, but
the 2 Coreys are how many movies deep by this point?
This is number 1.
Is it number one?
This is what started it.
Okay. God.
So they went right from this into License to Drive.
License to Drive, and what was the other one?
Dream a Little Dream.
I Dream a Little Dream 1 and 2. Yeah.
Tim, to answer your question, I don't know, or Blake, whoever asked the question, I'm not sure you can take one of the main characters out that's not needed. You probably could take one of the vampires, one of the Lost Boys out. Like, is Bill from Bill and Ted really needed in this movie?
It's going to be Bill. He's definitely the bottom of the totem pole here.
I'm going to say Star is not needed.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Star and and little Ernie or whatever his name is
Michael just could have had an issue with David, and that's it. I think the whole Star thing and save my son. I think if they just left that out, this would be.
Star's the reason
it wasn't her son.
He sticks with these dickheads who do nothing but make fun of him all the time until he learns they're vampires.
Well, Star
is vital.
No, you could have still had this movie. He gets to town, and like Blake said, or maybe it was you that said this, Max is wanting their mother, so he seeks the Lost Boys on Michael to try to turn him so he can turn the mother. You really don't need Star.
But they wanted to do it nice and easy. Like they wanted Michael to just be their buddy. Like they say that 100 times. They weren't they weren't trying to start a fight. They were just like, look, you need to be a vampire. This is the deal. We can all be super cool, good-looking dudes.
Did they want him to be a buddy, or were they doing it because Dad said so?
I don't know, man. I think Sutherland really liked Michael. I think they could have been total bros. Just 2 badass dudes walking the boardwalk.
It's like Swayze and Keanu Reeves in Point Break. In another life, they
exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing.
All right. Well, hit us down in the comments. What did we miss? What did we mess up? What did we miss? What did we mess up? What do you guys think? What are your ratings for the Lost Boys? Tell us your character this movie could have done without. Is there anything to what I said about Max being a sympathetic character at the end, losing his boys? We're chugging along, guys. I don't know if we'll make it through October or
What
not.
day is this?
Day 5, Tim.
Jesus, we're only on day 5.
We're 5 days in, Tim.
All right.
It feels like 40 days in. I've been in the cave
For 40 days.
See you guys tomorrow.
Later.